Harihi Om. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Tat Purushaya Vitmahe Vakrathundaya Dhimahi Danho Dhandi Prachodayam. Om Ganeshayam Mahakayam Vignarajam Vinayagam Vishvesham Vishvashaksham Ganeshayam Namo Namaha. Om Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalar Spatikatruthim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Ayagrivam Upasmahe Yasyadvarada Vakradhyaya Parishatya Parashatham Vignam Nignam ti satatam Vishvashremam tamashraye Gurud Brahma Gurud Vishnu Gurud Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Sarvalokana Visaje Bhavaroginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyana Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Sarveshwararpanamastu. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopam Karotham Pravaram Muninam Pathanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shangachakrasidharinam Sahasrasirisham Devam Tam Namami Pathanjalim. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Yogeshwararpanamastu. Yada Sharanam Nasti. Sai Ram. Welcome to week 14, the penultimate week, which has taken us into a journey into the boggling space, which is the mind, and how that boggling space can be made little and little and little until it becomes a complete spaceless and limitless place for you to do other things, except that which you always do, which is thinking, right? So it is a complete limitless space where you can exist in a state of thoughtlessness. And that's what we've been looking at. And we've been going through the 4 books, right? And last week, we finished the 3rd book. And we are now in the Kaivalya Pada, which is the 4th book. I started the first 6 verses. Today, I'm going to go on to another 14 verses. And then the last 14 verses we'll do next week. And next week, I will also conclude the entire series. So we've had 15 weeks of mind-boggling yoga science, science of yoga, yoga science, right? So science of yoga and yoga science, S-I-G-N-S. So the yoga science, S-C-I-E-N-C-E, will show you the yoga science, S-I-G-N-S. If you don't use the science to get the sign so that you can make your journey, then you are, still engrossed in the cycle of that birth and death continuously. So you must do what you should do at the time you should do it in order for you to progress. Otherwise, you are running in the same spot. It does not matter how slow you run or how fast you run or whether you are at a standstill. The fact of the matter is you are in the same spot. So if you say, I've been doing this dhyana for many years, then you should have progressed. And you should check yourself to see where you were, where you are, and where you can be. Right? But if it's the same sensation that you're experiencing each time you go into this dhyana stage, then you have been running on the spot. This is what I mean when I say you run on the spot. So in verse 7, what Maharshi Patanjali is saying is, Karma ashukla akrashanam yogina trividam mitaresham. Right? Karma ashukla akshanam trividam mitareshanam. What does that mean is, when the yogi engages in the practice of yoga, the science, S-C-I-E-N-C-E, he does not expect a reward if he does it right. He does not expect a punishment if he does it wrong. This is no expectation. But others may have three types of actions. Trividam iterasham. Others may experience three types of feeling. Either they are expecting to get something, or they are desirous of getting something. Expectation and desire, two different things, right? One or the other. Or they say, I don't have any expectation, I don't have any desire, but it would be nice if I got one of these or the other. The three stages you will get if you are in that three. But for the yogi, the practice and the constant sadhana that he engages in, as far as yoga is concerned, that science does not reward him, nor does it penalize him. This I'm talking about an advanced yogi who has, passed the stage of samyama. Samyama means, he's in that final stages. He's fast, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, that 5 stages he's passed. Now he's doing dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So he's in between, hovering between dhyana and samadhi. He does not get rewarded, nor does he get penalized. Remember, I said to you last week that when you're at that level, you will get that light coming to you. That light may be represented by some yogi, right? It could be any of these yoga masters who are already floating there. They will come and they will say, let's take you to Devaloka. And you can refuse it. Last week I told you, right? The story of Mudgala, or Rishi Mudgala, right? Anyway, so an advanced yogi, who has mastered the meditative sciences, right? I think, remember, I'm telling you that if you want to know more about the stages of meditation, you go and read Narayana Suktam, right? Narayana Upanishads, sorry. That tells you where you can see what. Because one of the things that is said in there is Om iti ek aksharam nama iti dvayakshare. Like that, it talks about each syllable and what those syllables means in terms of the meditative space in the universe, right? And that's why it's always chanted in Prashanti, for example. So an advanced yogi who's mastered the dhyana stages, he just wants to go higher and higher and higher at a time where he can forget himself and just be floating in that space until he is taken by a light to another place of absolute light where there is no difference between one light and another light. That is called merging with the Parabrahman. Right? Parabrahman is a supreme universal light. Like I always say, if you strike a match, right, and hold the match upright, you can see a little flame. But if you take that flame into the burning candle, the candle that is already lit, if we put that small flame into the flame of that candle, you cannot distinguish which flame belongs to the stick, which flame belongs to the candle. In that same way that I'm talking about, if you can imagine the entire universe with such tejas, brilliant tejas all across, then you are a small light and you go in there. That's it, you merged. There's no difference between the Atma Jyoti and the Paramatma Jyoti. Is Jyoti at the end of the day, right? So this is what he's saying in verse 7. Great Maharshi Patanjali is saying, of course, I told you who is Patanjali, is none other than Adishesha, right? Adishesha asked Vishnu. I told you this in the first session, right? For the benefit of those who join later. He said, people are suffering in Bhuloka. I would like to go and do some seva and help them. But at the same time, I should not forget who I am and who my master is, that is you. So that is why Vishnu blessed Patanjali to go and serve all of them and tell them about the science of yoga. So he did this work. But of course, his body, upper body was human and the bottom body was still that of a snake, right? That's why when you see the images of Patanjali, you only see the upper torso, right? So he came and he said, in this 189 suktas, 196 suktas, the journey that one should make from scratch to finish, so that the light that you are become and joined and merge with the light that is. Otherwise, the light that is will always be, the light that you are will be born again and again and again and again. Punarjanma. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, puranapi janani jathare shayanam. Iha samsare bahutustare, kripaya pare pahi burare. Vajagovindam, Vajagovindam. Shankara beautifully says, if you don't surrender yourself to the ultimate, you will continuously be born again. Punarjanmaha. Punarapi maranam, punarapi jananam. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, until you cut the coils of this bondage. Right? So that's what he is saying in verse 7. In verse 8, what is he saying? Tatha tat vipaka anujnanam eva abhivyakta vasananam. What's he saying there? Tatha tat vipaka anugunanam eva abhivyaktahi vasananam. Tatha means afterwards, subsequently. Beyond this, what happens? Tat vipaka means that which develops as a result of you doing something. So basically fruits of your actions, right? Anugunana means that which is attached to your actions, corresponding features, if you like. Eva means one, eka, eva means one. Abhivyaktihi, that means that which results or the consequences or manifestation, if you like. Vasana, vasananam, vasanas means tendencies. Right? Your vasanas, your moha vasanas are your thoughts, basically. So it's chitta, is related to chitta. Right? So in the earlier verse, he said the yogi is not attached to anything that he does that is the product of the mind, because his job is to detach himself from the products of the mind. Now he is saying all those things that is the product of the mind, right? They will have corresponding features. And then it just takes you from one corresponding feature to another corresponding feature. At the end of the day, it brings you down, descales your height. Meditation takes you above, but this attachment to the moha vasanas, which is attached to your thought, brings you down. So here he's trying to say, as you go higher and higher, let the pressure of your thoughts become lower and lower and lower until you are only going up and there is nothing to hold you back and bring you down. There is no corresponding energy to bring you down. That's what he's saying here, right? See, everything in the material creature, everything in the material creature that is nature, material creation, works according to the tendencies of your thoughts, and that manifests as the result of your thoughts. Very simple example I give you. You're doing something, suddenly you feel thirsty. The thought of thirst has come in your mind, but physically the corresponding action is you will stop what you're doing and you'll go find yourself a drink. And whilst you're going, you will decide whether it's going to be hot, it's going to be cold, and what is going to be tea, coffee, whatever, hot chocolate, soft drink, whatever, cold, hot. Now that is what I mean, corresponding features. And sometimes you may realize, I really like a sweet drink. But then, you have a disease. Then you say, once in a while is okay. So basically, something is not good, but yet the thought has given this corresponding feature, which you then go and bring it further down. And then your sugar goes up or your BP goes up or whatever the case may be. So you see, this is what he's saying. Right? The manifestation of the ultimate result is a direct result of the thoughts that has first manifested. So he's saying, control that thought, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. When you go into meditation, you're only going upwards. Right? Fantastic, right? Because we live in such modern comfort, so we are so used to that. So we're always thinking, even simple thing like meditation, you look for a mat or you look for a wooden platform or you look for a nice big cushion. You look for all these comforts. Because that's the modern time. In the early days, in the ancient days of the rishis and the sadhus and the Siddhic masters, they just go and sat on a rock surrounded by jungle. And when they leave that body and go into just the thought, whatever happens to the body does not affect them. Because they've gone beyond that. Right? So they can stay without food and drink. Because the body is no longer attached to the thought that is telling them time to eat, time to drink, time to sleep. Right? Ravana mastered, his 10 mashtakas or 10 heads represents the 6 shastras and the 4 Vedas, hence Dashamashtaka. Right? You know how long it took him? 1,000 years of meditation of Lord Shiva. He was an ardent Shiva devotee. And he got it because he never let go of the seriousness and the constancy of his tapasya. So he got it. But then, of course, anything that you get that you do not use for dharmic reasons and for, dharmically you don't use, then you are doing adharma. And for that adharma, dharma will come to save it. So dharma came in the form of Rama, a normal man. Because even the greatest intellect can sometimes ask for something, thinking that because he's more powerful, he does not need to be protected over the less powerful. So Ravana asked for a boon. He said, I cannot be killed by any of the 3 murtis, 3 devis, of everything, whatever mix between the devis, mix between the devas, the mix between the deva and the devi, nothing can come. So he cited every possible type of creature, deva, yaksha, gandharva, murtis. But the only thing he left out was manushya, man. That is why yada yada hi dharmasya glahinir bhavati bharata vyutthanam adharmasya tathatmanam sajamyaham. Vishnu took his avataram as a normal man, Rama. Right? And I covered this in great detail when I did Ramayana over 9 weeks. And it is available on YouTube. If you want to go and revisit, listen to it again, you will learn far more than you have ever because of the inner significance that was focused in this. Inner significance that will lead to your inner transformation that will show outside, externally. That is the purpose of this life. Now we go into the yoga science, is telling you how to regulate your mind. I told you mind, body, spirit. Only when your mind is controlled can your body suppress itself to that controlling element, which is the mind. Then the spirit becomes aligned. So mind, body, spirit. That is yoga. Okay. Then in verse 9, he is going to talk about Jati Desha Kala Vyahitanam Api Anantaryam Smriti Samskaryo Eka Rupavat. Very beautifully he's saying, even though man in this world is separated by different circumstances, by different status, by different location, by different time, still he is bound by his own thoughts, by his own form of attachment. And that resulting memory continues to operate even though you are in a different lifetime. This is, I covered this in great detail when I did karma, part 1, part 2, part 3, and all these parts, 3 parts are available on the YouTube channel, right? Then Brother Ganesh will remind you again at the end to go and see it if you are that way inclined. Here he's saying, Jati is your status, Desha is your location, your country, Kala is time, Vyavahitanam. Vyavahitanam means of everything that is disjointed. That is people. People are disjointed in many different ways because of location, because of time, because of jati, because of matham or religion. The Veda, the difference is there, right? Api, that means even if, despite, notwithstanding. Anantaryam. Anantaryam means the continuous of time. Smriti means that which is remembered. Knowledge is passed through Shruti and Smriti. Either you listen to something or you capture it in form of energy that is floating. Sanskarayo means impressions that is formed as a result of the thought process. Eka Rupatvat, due to one form, that is you, right? So you should use that one form to cut off the many forms that exist as a result of your thoughts, right? So there is past life, there is present life, and of course, how you live your present life will determine if you have a future life, karma, right? No one escapes karma, and everybody's karma is individual, right? I told you how foolish is it to think that your karma will affect your child's karma. So even if you pray day and night, 24/7, 365, your child still has to go through the karma. Because they came with their own energy. You have come with your own energy. In this life, you've been put together. That's why he's saying, Jati, Desha, Vaisha, Kala, Rupa, all that will not affect you. Even though you're put in one place, you're disjointed because of your thought energies that has directly got to do with your karmic consequences. Whatever you have to face, you have to face. Know that, accept that, surrender to that and say, just guard and guide me. Right? Even the gods are subject to karma. How when Krishna, after winning the war with the Pandavas, when he came back to Hastinapur, how Gandhari cursed him. He said, you are the fellow who is responsible for killing my 100 children, my 100 sons. In the same way, you will die when you least expect it. And how did he die? I also said how Krishna died. He was resting under a tree with his feet out. The shadow of the sun against his feet made it look like a deer. Because his feet were so beautiful, it looked like the head of a deer. From a distance, the hunter, looking at the shadow, took an aim and hit. The arrow hit his, big toe. He died as a result. Same thing. Same thing. Karna, Arjuna, right? They all suffered effects of their karma. Kunti Devi lost her son in karmic consequences. Right? She was put in a place where she could not admit he was the son and could not tell her other sons that that is the elder brother whom you are fighting against. But even then she went and got a boon from him. You can only fire the Nagastram once. Fantastic, when you go through this and it tells you how life is to be lived, but we just hear it as a story and dismiss it as a mere myth, then so too your life. Your life is also a myth. When you fail to see the truth, you become a fallacy. When you realize you're a fallacy, you see the truth. What is it you want to see? In a very dark room, the room is absolutely dark, but you light a small matchstick. It is entirely your choice whether you choose to see the darkness that is far more prevalent or that little bright light that is existing in that very dark room. All a matter of perception. And this is what he's saying in this verse. My God, conscious, subconscious, superconscious. If you do not transcend from the conscious self to the subconscious self, you will never merge with the superconscious. Again, you fall back into the conscious and Punarjanmaha will happen. And there you go. So it is entirely up to you. That is why in the next verse he's saying, Tasam anaditvam cha ashisha nityatvat. Here he's saying, Tasam, those, anaditvam. What is happening, right? Continuously, like a cycle, no beginning, no end. The primeval, right? Cha asisesa, the hope, your desire, all these energies, nityatvat. Nitya means is eternal, tvat is the concept. So these memories and impressions that come with you in each birth is a direct result of continuity, right? And of course, in this life, you don't deal with them. Instead, you take on more. My classic example is I give you when we travel, the Asians and the Africans mostly, right? The Europeans don't have this habit. The Africans, Asians, the airline will give you 20 kgs. That's not enough. You will buy either extra kgs, and even then you will be overweight, So you have a choice of how much luggage you want to add on in this life that you want to carry. And don't forget, you are actually carrying that luggage. Even though it is in the plane, that luggage is still your property. So life must be used to discard. In shipping, they call jettison. Jettison means throwing overboard what is not going to be good for the journey of the boat. If the boat is heavy, right? Sometimes you see some movies, the aeroplane is having some engine trouble. What they do is to save the fuel, they will throw away some of the things. So your life, in order to merge with the higher forces, you have to discard these desires, these energies, the Ichcha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti, right? You have to destroy your Ichcha to Kriya in order to become Jnana. In 3 stages. Here is saying, right? When the yogi is meditating, he can see, if I go this way, this is going to be the result. If I go this way, this is going to be the result. Now, which way do I want to go? And then he must ensure that he gets separated from that which is not good for his energy. And this is what I call, detachment, vairagya. Then in verse 11, he goes on to talk about, how to do that. Hetu, phala, asraya, alambhanai, sangrihi tattvat, esam abhave tat abhavaha. Right? That means he says, hetu means the cause. Phala means the fruit or the effect. Ashraya means in a causal plane, in a state of consciousness. Alambhane means what supports it, what supports your status. Sangrihi tattvat means sangrana means what holds it together. Esham, those things. Abhave, either it is not there or it is not existing, but your thoughts think they are, right? So they exist by what holds them together in terms of cause and effect. Supporting, lifting, bringing it down, right? that is done constantly and consistently by your own thoughts, isn't it? How do you get fear? It's not when you look at something, it's the thought that comes as a result of that perception. That visual gives you that feeling, that bhava comes as the result of that. So it is not what that is existing outside, it is what your mind makes of it that creates the bhava that comes out within you. Sometimes that which you see is not there, it's a creation of the mind. Don't go into that space. You haven't gone in there, but your mind tells, don't go in there because you will get scared. So you stop going in there. See, it may not exist. That's why he's saying here, abhave, either it is there or it is not there, but it is your thought that is creating it. And as a result of that thought, you live the consequences of that thought because there is a corresponding feature to that thought. And that thought is, I will not go there because my thoughts have told me. I mean, Patanjali, what he could see when he wrote these things is just beyond me. And modern science cannot touch it. It is 100% clinically accurate. That's clinical accuracy, surgical accuracy. You cut with one straight line with a scalpel without using a ruler. That is how strategically thought out one verse leads to the next verse, to the next verse, to the next verse. 190 over verses with such clinical accuracy, unfading, straight, each time, every time, all the time. That is how this science of yoga can show you different signs. But because you see the sign, you interpret, you will live that interpretation. You will experience that interpretation. That is why yoga is experience. 100 people may be sitting in one room and doing that yoga. One person may have a different experience. In fact, all 100 will have different experiences, but one person will have a supreme experience all the time, right? That's because the level is different. 100 people may be learning cooking from the same master. Will they all cook to the same level of excellence? No, right? Because one of them will try and think, what if I put this little bit more, the taste will be better. This little bit less, the taste, So they do their own things. Master has said, this is the measurement. But still people will put their own little, incantations in there, interpretations in there, right? Then he goes on to say, Atitha anagatham swarupatha asti atvabedat dharmanam. Atitha, the past, anagatham, the future, swarupatha, the form, the true form, asti, your base. Advabedat, it comes as the result of differences, a difference in events, difference in cause. Dharmanam, that is a characteristics, that is the dharma. So there is a true form of the past and the future, which is denoted by the different form of characteristics. See, Patanjali, here he's telling the past and the future is determined by the present and how you live your present. Right? So the past and the future are real existences that are based in the future. Time is not an illusion, he's saying. Time is not an illusion. It is real in that sense of the connecting factor between the past, the present, and the future. You are here as a human form in whichever family, whichever religion, whichever culture you are born into. That's a direct result of your thoughts. Those thoughts have a direct link to your final thoughts that were before you breathed your last. Some accumulation of your karmas in that life and the last surviving thoughts before you breathed your last will determine where you go in the next life. But so you come with that karma, you have a choice of, desiccating that karma and accumulating fresh karma without any sense of, relationship with it. So that's why Krishna says in the Gita, do your duty, don't expect fruits, don't expect award, don't expect reward, don't expect recognition. Just do and go. It's like pay as you go, just do as you go. Don't expect anything. And this is exactly what Patanjali is saying. He said, this time is real. You are here because of something you have done. But where you go from here, it depends on what you are doing. What you're thinking, what you're saying, what you're doing. So karma is just not on what you have done. Karma is what you have thought, what you have said, and what you have done. Right? So you can get phala, or you can get papa. Papa, punya. So the fruits of your thoughts, good or bad. The fruits of your words, good or bad. And the fruits of your actions, good or bad. Whatever consequences that results, you'll get that. You'll get very easily. Right? He's saying the changes in time in the present, right? They're like a stockpile. They become bigger and bigger because time is the basis of the slight or major differences of consequences. How you use that time really makes a difference. That's what he's saying. Then he goes on to say, Te vyaktha shukshma gunatmanaha. Te vyaktha shukshma gunatmanaha. Te means they. Vyaktha means gross. Shukshma means subtle. Gunatmanaha means subtle material nature of itself. Atmanaha. Guna atmanaha. That is the very character of the self. It has the ability to move from gross to subtle. And if you're not careful, from subtle back to gross. Your thoughts can either move you to a gross nature or to a subtle nature, because that is the inherent nature of thoughts. So Patanjali is saying, why attach yourself to the thoughts? Three phases of time, past, present, future. Why? Even Shankara said, Uda jahihi danagama trishnam, kurusat buddhim manasi vitrishnam, yalla bashe nija karmo bhatam, vittam tena vinodaya chittam. Chittam is control the thought. That is all you need to do. Once you align the thought beyond any further alignment, then that in itself will take you from gross to subtle. Right? And that must be constant. It cannot be a one-off thing, 24 hours in a day. And this is a check for each one of you, right? How many times do you stop and think of that one force? How many times? You breathe 24,600 times a day, in, out, swasa, taking in, taking out. How many times have you stopped to listen to your own breathing? Your own breathing also you take for granted. That's why meditation is where you sit and you can hear. Oh, and in the middle, that, which is the connecting factor, that Ishvara Pranidana. I spoke about this as well. Your prana should be treated as a dana to that Ishvara. Ishvara Pranidana. Right? In one of the reflection series, I spoke about this. All the reflections are also there on the YouTube channel. So here, Parinama Ekatvat Vasutattvam. Parinama means the transformation or the change. Right? Ekatvat. That means singleness, uniqueness, oneness. Vastu is the object, and Tattvam is the essence or the composition of whatever you're doing. So the actual composition of what you see, the object, is based on the uniqueness of the transformation from the visual perception to the mental conception. Fantastic, because two people can see the same thing and may think completely different things. So the uniqueness of the transformation of the visual perception depends on the mental conception of the seer, of the visualizer, of the perceiver. So you may look at a seed and say, nothing, man, this one is just a seed. Another person can say, this has the quality of going into a nice plant. Some of you may visualize the entire tree at the end of the day. But some of you might see an oak tree and say, this was once like this seed. The same seed, four people looking for different perceptions. The uniqueness of the transformation of their thoughts depends on the uniqueness of their own sense of visualization, perception, and of course, how they change that. Right? That's why they say, as you think, you become. Swami often says, God, if you think of, God, you are. Dust, if you think of, dust, you are. As you think, you become. So why don't you think of things more positive and things that can detach you from this bondage? That is your own doing, right? So instead of using this life to disregard all the karmas you brought, or just, to eradicate them, little by little by little by little by little, you accumulate more. And ensure a confirmed ticket for next Punarjanma. Now, next he goes on to say, Vastu samaye chitta vedat tayo vibhaktha pantaha. Here he says, Vastu means the object. Samaye means in the time. Chitta means, of course, your thoughts. Veda means difference, right? Veda, difference, change. Tayo, between the two. Vibhakta means joint, vibhakta means separated. Pantaha means the way you look at things, the viewing. Because there's a lot of prejudice in viewing, right? Like, the classic reference to if you put half a glass of water, do they ask you, is it half full or half empty? How many will say it's half full and how many will say it's half empty? This is the prejudice that Patanjali is talking about here, right? You are born with certain prejudices because that dharma comes with you as a result of the karma. That dharma comes to you as a result of your past karma. So the prejudices are lying there, innate, they are dormant. And as you grow, they also grow, and at one point they come out and they show, look, I'm prejudiced this way. I'm prejudiced this way. I'm prejudiced that way. I'm prejudiced any other way. So because of the difference in the mental, emotional energy, which is your thoughts, two separate persons can view the same thing in a completely different way. So when you go to space, you are looking for something. So even in space, with physically your eyes closed, your eye of wisdom is open saying, where's that thing I'm looking for? Where's that thing I'm looking for? But the question is, are you looking for something in that time, in that space? This is what it means. Either you can float or you can defloat. Deflate and defloat, So take off the prejudices of your thoughts. Okay. From thoughtfulness, you have to become thoughtlessness. That fullness must become empty. How? Less. Thoughtlessness. You cannot overnight become thoughtless. Little by little. 20 to 19, 19 to 18, 18 to 17, like that, you can come to zero, right? 20 to 0 is not possible, not practical, right? Even rishis can't do that. They go through a stage. That's why I say yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, ashtanga yoga, 8 stages, right? So you have to have that procedural sequence. Otherwise, just going to the 8th stage does not guarantee you the 9th stage. It will push you back to the 1st stage and tell you, hey, go and learn the 1st stage first, then go to the 2nd, then count to 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Right? And he goes on to say, Nacha eka chitta tantram chet vastuthat. Apramanakam tada kim syat. Apramanakam tada kim syat. He's saying, no. Not. Cha means and. Eka, one. Chitta means thoughts. Tantra means that which is dependent on. Che means if not. That means otherwise. But for, in other words. Vastu means the object. Tat means which is that. Apramanakam means not being observed. That means it exists, but you're not observing it. Tatha, then, kim, what? Syat would occur. An object is not dependent on one person's thoughts or one person's perception, right? Because if it is dependent on a person's thoughts or perception, then what would happen to that thing if it is not observed or perceived by or visualized by anybody? isn't it? That's a limited mind. Saying everything exists. How you view, how you perceive, that will affect how you progress in that line of thinking. Right? The limited minds lose perception of an object simply because they think this is not going to be there forever. You don't see the sun, in close proximity. You see it sometimes, you don't see it sometimes. But that does not mean when you see the sun, the moon doesn't exist, or when you see the moon, the sun doesn't exist. Right? And that does not mean you see the sun in different time zones in different countries. It does not mean there are 10 suns according to the 10 different time zones. Same one object is perceived differently in different places at different times by different people. But how do the Hindus perceive the moon? The moon is the mind. The sun is the eyes. So you can see the connection between the perception, the perceiver, and what is perceived. Chandrama manaso jataha, chaksho suryo ajayatha, mukha indrascha agnischa, pranar vayurajayatha. Fantastic. Purusha Shuktam. Telling you all this. What is the eyes? What is the mind? What is your prana? So you must understand what faculties the Creator has given you and how you should view creation from a perspective of jnana, wise visualization. Wise, I mean W-I-S-E. But man looks at it from wise, V-I-C-E. So move away from V-I-C-E perception to W-I-S-E perception. How fantastic, right? All this is given to you. Tadubharaga uparaga apekshitvat chittasya vastu jnana ajnana. That. Uparaga means color. Sometimes when you think, your mood affects your thoughts. Apekshitvat means what you expect to see as a result of looking at something in a specific mode that governs your chitta. What you see, the object. Either you know the object jnatha or ajnatha, means you don't know it. An object is seen, perceived, visualized, is known or unknown depending on the mood and expectation of the thoughts of the perceiver or the person that sees it. So one person can look at, a cloudy day and say, what beautiful clouds, and look at the movement of the clouds. Another person can say, oh my God, it's going to rain again, and what a dark, gloomy day. And some people will say, the clouds are just passing, There is a silver lining behind it. Perception. What you perceive will regulate your thoughts. Your thoughts will regulate your speech. Your speech will regulate your actions. Your actions will regulate the consequences. Everything is connected. Do not disconnect just because you think, it won't happen this way, it won't happen that way. That is your own sense of self-pacification. That is your own sense of self-pacification. It's not going to happen like that because that's not how nature functions, right? If you take a knife and, stab a tree, the tree is not going to slap you. But you have done something in nature and you will get the repercussions or the ramifications of those actions. At some point, something will happen. That is the balance, how nature balances itself, right? That's why they say, you need this Suddha Darshana. That means pure vision. Pure vision means ahimsa. Ahimsa means what? Non-violence. Non-violence in what? Non-violence in your thoughts, non-violence in your words, non-violence in your actions. That is ahimsa. People think ahimsa means don't take up arms, violence. No, violence in your thoughts, violence in your words, violence in your actions. That's why I say that is the Hindu tattvam. Hin comes from the word himsa. Dur is dur. So a person who is far away, distancing himself from violence. Dur, hinsa. Himsa, dur. Hin, du. Then you're a true Hindu. When you distance yourself from the violent thoughts, from the violence of words and the violence of actions. True Hindu. At that point in time. Then the next one is saying Sada Nyatha Chitta Vrittaya Tat Prabho Purusasya Aparani Mandi. Yeah. Sada means always. Nyatha means that which is known. Chitta means thoughts. Vrittaya means, the sequential running, the operation stuff. That Prabho means Prabhu, Ishwar, the governor. Purusasya, that is the spirit. Aparanimam with. Right? That means due to change or due to changelessness, depends on the perceiver. So the operation, how the thought operates is only known to the Purusha because you are truly a spirit. So they say you are Jivatma and the creator is Paramatma. Right? That is why one of the reference to Lord Shiva is he is Pashu and he is Pati. Pashu is, of course, his Vahana, the cow, right? Or the bull, which is always looking at Shiva. Yeah, all the Vahanas are always facing, right? That Mula Devata. So he's saying you are the Pashu and he's the Pati. The Pati knows what you're thinking because the Pati is you in a sense, in a subtle sense. You are you in a gross sense. So he's saying use your life to take away the gross and merge with the subtle. Prabho, Purushasya, Aparinam with. So he says that can change on how you look at things, That is 18. And 19 he says, Nathat Swabhasam Dasyatvat. Nathat Swabhasam Dasyatvat. That means he says, Na, that, not that. Swabhasam means that which can, that which has the quality of illumination, self-illumination. Self-illumination. Drashyatvat. Through sight, through perception, through visualization. So he's saying that mental, emotional energy, that is your thoughts, is not self-illuminative. But it is capable of being made self-illuminative. Because you, the perceiver, are perceiving things at a gross level, and you need that inwardness to go and convert that thing to a subtle. So you're no longer facing that external bit, you are now looking inward. That thoughts the nature of the thoughts has a capacity or capability of being perceived despite being, not self-illuminative. And Patanjali says, if you go deeper and deeper and deeper into the science of yoga, then you become more inner and inner and inner, and you detach yourself from the outer, from the outer, from the outer. It depends on you and your thoughts. Like I said, you can go deep into meditation and boom, drop down because you suddenly realize, you did not lock your car when you parked it in the car park. And that thought will take you to the so many car thefts happening. What if, there is one file from the office in the back of the seat, or I've kept some things in the boot. You see one thought, how it takes you away and away and away. And then boom, you open your eyes, you get up and you go and you lock your car, come back. That's what he talks here, that lack or absence of light, despite your soul being a light, that is the changelessness. And that only you can change. That's what he's saying. And that cannot happen at the same time. That's why he says in verse 20, he says, Ekasamayecha ubaya anavadharanam. Ekasamayecha ubaya anavadharanam. That means ekasamaye means at the same time. Simultaneously, cha ubaya means both. Anavadharanam means it cannot focus. That means it either focuses on the thought of what it sees, what it visualizes, or it focuses on the perceiver and goes beyond. So if you focus on the thought, then the results of that focus will materialize. If you leave what you see and you continue on yourself and you go into higher elevations, then the focus will be on that. Right? He's saying your thoughts cannot focus on both what you see and who you are. What is seen and the seer. No. Only deep meditation can take you higher. Otherwise, you see something, you move from the state of meditation, you come out and go to Yama and Niyama stage, and then that brings you back to ground zero. Right? He says, you can only practice this through samyama. Samyama is dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Actually, samadhi is the final consequence when you engage in dhyana with such perfection. And you can only engage in dhyana when you are dharana, when you've completely cut yourself from all the material pulls. This akramic pulling. Then, yes. Otherwise, vicious cycle. You go back to the vicious cycle. Many have told me, no matter how much I try, after about 10 minutes or sometimes 5-6 minutes, I come back. And you need to do more. That's purely because you've not gone through the 5 stages of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. If you are not sitting in a meditation pose during meditation, at the end of a bhajans or kirtan or whatever, at which point of time in your daily life are you sitting and doing meditation? So your asana is poor, it's not managed properly. So if you're not used to sitting properly, then how can you sit for 10 minutes or 15 minutes? It is a fresh experience. So the body is not used to it. But if you're so used to sitting, the moment you go into that pose, it is so easily handled by the body, right? That is why if you go to India, they still have the choice, right, between a squatting toilet and a sitting toilet. Because the squatting toilet is yogasana. That is an asana. And in fact, one of the asana poses is the squatting pose just when you go to open your bowels. Because that has placed that the way you squat has completely opened, the space where things that are meant to be discharged will be discharged without any problem. Whereas, the modern sitting toilets of the Western culture gives you more problems than which you anticipate. It gives you comfort, but, everything comes with a consequence. It is yoga. But once you get to squatting and using all the time, it really doesn't matter whether you have a Western toilet or you don't have a Western toilet. You just need to squat where you should be able to squat. That's it. When I go, I always choose, the Indian version of the toilet. When we went to Kailash, there were no toilets at all. Nature was it. Right? And human feces is such that it just disintegrates into nature and becomes one of the best fertilizers. They even made a movie in the West of how a man in space grew potatoes using his own, discharge, his own feces. So science, S-C-I-E-N-C-E. The science can show you the S-I-G and S, the science. This is the 2 words that you take away today, the science and the signs. That will move you from this level. Asatthoma satgamaya, from untruth to truth. Tamasthoma jyotirgamaya, from beyond light, from darkness to light. And when you go from untruth to truth and from darkness to light, the result is mrityorma amritam gamaya. You get moksha, you get liberation, you get mukti, right? Anyada sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mamaha tasmat karunya bhavena raksharaksha maheshwaraha hari om tat sat. Now, next week, we are looking at the final week. So I'm going to do the last few verses. And then I'm going to give you the conclusive summary of whatever we've looked at in the 15 weeks. Okay. Now, last week, towards the end, I just want to share with you that I had a little experience, right? When I spoke to Brother Ganesh later, he thought, as would have most of you, that the screen was frozen. Actually, the screen was not frozen. No? I was where I was in time, in space, but I was not where I was set. Just in that moment of time, Eka Shanam, I was talking to you about shana, 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 that moment, that minute space in time is enough for you to be taken away. I just found myself splitting, floating in an empty space. And all I could see was like your light just passing like that, little, if I can refer to them as little spaceships of light, vroom, 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 and I'm just going up like that, swirling, completely. I don't know how long I was gone for. That was a different feeling in a totally different space, in a totally different consciousness, if you like. And I think my job is not done here. This is why I was brought back. So when I came back, it took me a while to regulate my senses to the surrounding. Because of that difference, I don't know how long I was gone in time. I didn't ask Ganesh that, but it seemed ages. It seemed ages. And that's why it took me some time to realize, where am I? Is this? And then I realized, oh, right, satsang. I came back. But that is the kind of space I think the yogis are looking at. And they have that ability to go and come as they please because, others need help. So they go and elevate them and illuminate. Elevate, illuminate, elevate, illuminate. So that is what I think, those passing lights were. Thousands of them going past me, And I'm thinking, what is happening? Where am I? Going like that. And boom, came back. And so here I am, back with all of you. Anyada sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mamaha. Smart karunya bhavena raksha raksha maheshwaraha. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you, and hope to see you next week.